Panda, panda, hey panda. So this is you against reaction, and this is a TvP, and the things we need to remember in TvP is that you need to have either a marauder or a bunker at 5 minutes to defend a 2-stalker push, and you need to have bunkers at 6:30 because you know, that's when his warp gate tech will finish, and he can hit with 3 different very strong attacks at that point. And then you want to play defensively until about 9 or 10 minutes when your army is finally bigger than his, and then you finally have the opportunity it's possible for you to have an army as big as his. Until then, it's not even possible. There's nothing Terran can do against a reasonably safe Protoss to really win the game in the first 9 minutes. Actually, I should say after warp gate tech and before 9 minutes, because you can win before warp gate tech if he's, you know, doesn't make a sentry. But whatever. So your opponent goes for a really fast expo, and you don't scout it, and that I mean often is just the end of the game right there. But luckily you just happen to get your own expo around the same time, so that's cool. So you won't be too far behind. So 2 racks into expo into low ground bunkers is a pretty common sort of strategy. One thing I would caution against is that if you haven't scouted whether he's 1-basing or 4-gating or you don't know what he's doing at all, and you've got your M&M on the low ground just sitting in front of your ramp. If he came with a 7-minute really powerful, like, immortal sentry stalker zealot push, you would just lose the game right now. I mean, 2 racks gives you a big enough army for the first 6 minutes to put pressure on him, to have map control, to see whether he's putting up proxy pylons, to even like go check his ramp, see if his expo comes up and stuff. But at 6.5 minutes, as soon as he gets warp gate tech, he's too strong for this army to compete. So from 6.5 to 9 minutes, there's this period of time where his army is automatically just able to kill your army. Now, obviously, in this game, he did a fast expo, but you don't know that. So it's very risky of you to just have this army sitting on the low ground. See, even with someone who's going a very economic route, he's got 32 probes and a quick nexus and a robo bay that he hasn't even used yet. He's got all this stuff taking away from the size of his army, and yet he still has a bigger army than you, like a significantly bigger army than you. Especially if we wait until that warp-in finishes. So he's got like $350 bigger than you, and that's 30% bigger than you almost. Actually, it's almost exactly 30% bigger than you. So anyway, yeah, you don't want to do this. You want the bunkers up before 6.5 minutes, and you want to build the command center in place. So the 2 racks gives you enough army so that you can walk around looking for proxy pylons and go to his ramp and pressure a little bit and make sure he didn't get a fast expo and all that stuff. But at about 6 minutes, you want to go home, and you want your bunkers to be building at 6 minutes, and you want them to be done by 6.5 minutes, so that you can, you know, do that a little bit of early pressure. But before his warp gate tech finishes, you want to be back here inside bunkers, you know, stuff like that. Also, on this map, I find that bunkering off this area and then just saying, you know, if he comes this way, I guess I'll lose, works better, because a lot of times he'll come up here or come up here, and if your bunkers are this far back, he gets to pick which one of the bunkers to worry about, and the other bunker is just completely useless. Building this command center in place means you get to mine from it the entire time you're morphing it into an orbital, and you can see you're oversaturated on one base. You've got like 5 or 6 workers not even doing anything, and several other workers mining at half capacity because you built this up here to be safe, and I would say don't do that. Build it on the low ground. Yeah, dude. Jaw. So now you're doing something ridiculous, which is you've only had 2 racks all game, and you're going to go attack him with the army you made off of 2 racks. Now, obviously, 2 racks has exactly $500 military spending capacity per minute, and at 9 minutes, the benchmark per minute of military spending capacity is 750. So there's pretty much no way you're going to have a bigger army than him, right? So I guess you're just coming to poke and see what he has and just get an idea of what is out there and try not to lose anything. But we're going to see, before this battle, you guys are basically even on units lost. And then you're going to walk up here close to the sentries and get a whole bunch of stuff cut off and killed. And then you're going to come back and do the same thing again and get more stuff cut off and killed. And by the end of it, you're going to lose 2 stims on your whole army and $1,000. So this is the end of the game, right? You don't have any tech started. You just have an expo. You know, you're not positioned for the late game, and you just threw away your entire army. So this is just the end of the game. Also, you're so far behind economically, even though you took a very quick expo. Only 34 workers at 10 minutes. He's got 49. So, lots of stuff happens after this. He gets Colossus and you get Ghosts, and you say in your email, maybe I lost because I should have scouted Colossus and I shouldn't have gotten Ghosts. But that's not what you lost. You lost right here. The game is over. He's got 50 workers and you've got 34. He's going to take a quick third after this because he knows that came out way ahead for him. He's going to continue to power the workers. You're going to continue to, be pretty far behind economically. You're just now going to start getting a factory and a Ghost Academy and a third command center. But by the time your starport finishes, it's, I would guess, like 15 minutes into the game. Are you even building a starport yet? Here you go. Your starport is starting. So by the time your starport is even done, you have no air units and your starport is just finishing at 14 minutes. The game is over and you don't even have a starport yet. Like, so this is crazy. When I do a 2 racks fast expand, you need to start your third building at about 6.5 minutes, and you didn't start it until like, I don't know, 1.5 million minutes, 9-10 minutes, and you tried to do pressure. I've seen actually pro players on Husky's channel do this same mistake. He goes 2 racks, makes a big army, gets his expo, gets some bunkers, and he's like, I've spent all my money, I'm cruising, I'm doing all the right things, I've kept up on these 2 racks of production. I must have a bigger army than him, right? Because I've spent all my money and I have 2 bases, so obviously I'm bigger than him, right? And so he pushes out and he loses because no, you don't have a bigger army than him. What are you thinking? You spent $300 on bunkers, 550 on this, bunch of money on SCVs that were in your main, not even contributing to your income for a long time. And there's just no way that 2 racks is going to give you enough. Because think about it. 1 base builds tend to be the most powerful builds for the first 10 minutes, right? And 1 base build is 2 racks factory, or 3 racks, or 4 racks, and you produce off of all 3 or all 4 of those buildings the entire time. So if a 1 base build is going to use 3 buildings and you're only using 2, you're obviously going to have a smaller army. It's just like simple math, man. So don't do this. Don't push out and at 9 minutes. It's with 2 racks worth of guys. It's just completely silly. So yeah. If we just watch workers, he's at 50 and you're at 42. He's at 53 and you're at 44, and he's at a majillion, quadrillion, 55. He's starting his 3rd base. So you do start to kind of close the gap, and by the time he attacks you, you did pull ahead on income, but you were so far behind because you were so far off benchmark at 10 minutes that your army spending is going to be way behind his by the time the battle happens, and you lost all that stuff. So really, this comes down, I believe, to supply blocking yourself, not spending mule energy, and not understanding how this build works. You really need to get that 3rd building before 7 minutes, because you got a bunch of marauders queued up, and just like mule energy unspent. This is, again, mule energy unspent. This is a pet peeve of mine. People really got to drop mules. So if you're attacking when you have $600 of unspent mule energy and 200 more dollars of unbuilt marauders, and you've got another 400, 500 in the bank, 3 bunkers that aren't contributing to your army size, that's like $1,000 of army size difference. Of course he has $1,000 bigger army than you. You spent $1,000 on stuff that wasn't your army. So yeah, I'm exasperated, not because I've told you this before or anything. Like, you need to hear it, and I made the same mistake myself lots of times. So it's not like you did something really stupid. It's just people do this thinking that it's a good build, and they tell other people to do it, and sometimes they win games doing it, and then they're like, isn't it awesome, you should totally... And no. You need 3 or 4 buildings, not 2. 2 is not enough. 2 is enough for the first 6 minutes. By 7 minutes, you start to fall behind. So you need that 3rd and 4th building. Anyway, that is all, Master Chief. That is all. So I really wanted to just look at the worker count. So 23, you're off by 1. 25. 28, you're off by 3 or 2. 9 minutes, you've got 31. In 10 minutes, you've got 34 workers. So it seems like you didn't really fall behind very much on workers until you started to push out. until 9 minutes. You were on benchmark at 8 minutes, and then you were way behind by 10. And part of that is because you weren't making SCVs out of this second command center, and part of that is because you must have supply blocked yourself or just stopped making workers altogether when you were watching your army. Like, that's a pretty common mistake. So your opponent has balls, man. He has balls. He made a crap ton of workers, and he got by with a pretty small army because he saw that you were expanding too, you know? So look at this. At 8 minutes, he's got 36 to your 28. So yeah, you know, he's got balls. These early expand builds from Protoss piss me off, man. Because obviously you could kill him if you had the tanks to deal with the sentries, and you put bunkers in front of your army and had M&M behind the bunkers and then tanks behind that, and you kill off the sentries and then push in and whatever, because your army is reasonable. It's not bigger than his, but it's not too much smaller than his. But you don't even have a factory, so there's just no chance you're going to be able to punish him before his economy pays off. So now you have to wait until the second time period where your army can, where your army size can catch up. So Protoss gets Chrono Boost and we get mules, right? So with Chrono Boost being spent on his economy, he can consistently stay ahead of us in workers, but each command center, each orbital command you get counts as 4 additional workers. So even though he's 8 workers ahead, you have 2 command centers, so you're basically tied on income back then. I mean, now you're not, because he's all the way up at 51 and you're at 34, and 34 plus 8 is 42, and that's still way behind 51. But back at 8 minutes or whatever, when I was shocked at how big his probe count was before, you were within 8, right? Yeah, you were exactly 8 away, so whatever. That is all.